Hi everyone, welcome along to the Time Form and Sporting Life Racing Weekend Preview. I'm Ben Linfoot, delighted to be joined by Kieran Clark from Time Form and Matt Brocklebank from Sporting Life to discuss the feature Saturday action. We're going to start with the Group 2 race down at Newbury, the Bet Victor Hungerford Stakes over 7 furlongs. And Kieran, there seems to be a lot of this type of race at this time of year over 7 furlongs, but this is one of the best ones.
Yeah, they come thick and fast out there, the Lennox into the Hungerford. We've obviously got the very valuable City of York Stakes next weekend as well. So who knows, some of these might even reappear there given the money on offer. But yeah, it looks a trappy event this year. There's one or two we've met before, including last year's winner Jumbie, and Chindit's the one who heads the ratings, isn't he? He's £3 clear on Time Form ratings. He's had a good season so far. He made a winning reappearance at Ascot before he ran a cracker in the Lockinge, which we'll see in a minute. And you see there he's £3 clear of last year's winner Jumbie, who's also been in good form. He won the John O'Gaunt at Haydock before finishing second in the Criterion when he was just in front of Pogo. And then Witch Hunter, that comes from his Royal Ascot winning the Handicap. This is a total different kettle of fish for him, isn't it? Then a bit of a small gap to the remainder. So I think the winner will probably come from one of the top three, potentially. One that does have a lot to find is Mobtabshire right down the bottom, but he just has first time blinkers, which could see him improve his form a little bit. But the older horses seem to hold the key, I think.
Yeah, and as you get in these Group 2s, you do often get a Group 1 horse dropping into Group 2 company, and Chindit is that horse. So let's have a look at him racing in a Group 1 earlier in the season, where he ran a cracker in the Lockinge Stakes.
He did, yeah, and it's surprising. This is only his 20th start, because he seems to have been around quite a long time, doesn't he? And not only does he take a chunk out of the market on Saturday, he also...
He's coming through to win here, doesn't
he? He tries to take a chunk out of Modern Games in a minute. But like, this is no disgrace, is it? Strong. This is no disgrace. He's got beaten by a 5 times Group 1 winner. It looked quite a strong Lockinge on paper, didn't it? And see there, he tried to bite him, but he came out and ran in the Queen Anne. He was only 6, but that was a strange Queen Anne. They didn't really go much of a gallop, did they? And I think he definitely is the one to beat. But he did bomb out in this last year behind Jumbie, and also the rain could be a slight concern for him. Tends to be a better horse on better ground. He has won on good to soft, but that was a bit of a penalty kick at Doncaster last year. So I don't think he'd want bucket loads of rain, but he does set the standard.
Yeah, the way he travels over a mile, you think 7 furlongs, and then he runs over 7 furlongs, and you think he needs a mile.
Yeah.
So I think he's a little bit of an in-betweener. Matt, we're going to look at Jumbie next, because he won this race last year, and he's a horse that seems to run himself into form, doesn't he? And he's had those 3 or 4 runs now this season where you think he's going to produce another peak perhaps on Saturday.
Yeah, he's decent this time of year, isn't he? And I think if you sort of say 7 furlong, Group 2s, Group 3s, they're right up this horse's street. He really does fall in that bracket. He's too high for handicaps. He's not a Group 1 horse. Like a bunch of these as well. I could certainly see him running his race again. Here he is on the July course. Yeah, he's
a £3 penalty this day. Just finished in front of Pogo.
He's better off. He should reverse the form. What I would say about all 3 of those sort of high on the Time Form ratings, all 3 aren't really going to be in love with it if it turns genuinely soft, I suspect. Like I say with Jumbie, 7 furlongs, minor group race, but rattling quick ground would be real, sort of bring everything into place for him, and he's not going to get his ground either. So it might open things up. I'm personally just struggling to nail down a horse that's going to fully take advantage, because there are question marks about most of them further down the betting as well. So it is a tricky race to weigh up.
It is. Perhaps the pace map will help us out, Kieran, because Pogo looks the obvious one to jump out and go forward.
He does, yeah. He's a natural front runner, isn't he? And he's the only one really I can see who likes to go forward. Possibly Misty Grey. You'd think the likes of New Endeavour, he likes to be ridden prominently. He's another 3-year-old who's got some slightly interesting form. He was runner-up in the Britannia. Ran all right in a listed race that's working out pretty well last time. He could be one at each way play potentially. But yeah, going back to Pogo, this is his time of year. I know he doesn't want it soft, but this definitely is his time of year. He was second to Kim Ross in that City of York last year. He then beat Sacred in the Challenge Stakes at Newmarket before trying Group 1 company in the Breeders' Cup and in Maidan earlier in the spring. That's not his level, but he is rock solid at Group 2, Group 3. And the fact he's 11-2, I might be willing to take a chance on him. He's all right on good to soft. He wouldn't want it any softer. And yes, he does have a bit to find, but I just think Newbury can be a bit of a front-runner's track as well. I think he's got a lot going for him, and it's going to be catch me if he can, isn't he? Hope he can spring to success.
Olé.
Pogo for Kieran. Matt, just with that pace map in mind, and I know I'm not going to call him a cliff horse, but I know Marban has been on your radar all year really for a race like this.
Yeah, I took a chance on him anti-post ahead of the Commonwealth Cup, thinking he might just be able to bridge the gap class-wise, because he did have a fair amount of find. He's one of them. He's just flattered to deceive a little bit for me. I can't completely knock his Lennox effort. And when you look over the years, the Lennox, if you're going close in a Lennox, you should really be going fairly close in this. And I suppose he was beaten by Kinross and Isaac Shelby. What sort of price would they be in this race? They'd be fairly short towards the top of the betting. He was fairly well beaten. He's another one who's going to be kind of ridden off the pace as well. He's got to bridge a class gap. He just has to, and he's just not done it yet. So, not quite for me. I wonder if a bigger field, fast ground, next year's Wokingham off about a mark of 100.
Well, Charlie Fellow said in the paper the other day, if it gets too much rain, they're going to run in for the money next Saturday in the city of York.
Yeah.
But yeah, he'd be really interesting Wokingham target, wouldn't he?
No selection?
No bet. I mean, at the start of the week, I was looking at New Endeavour. I know Kieran's given him a fairly positive mention. I thought he ran a bit better than the bare form behind Nostrum, and he was definitely unlucky not to go very close in the Britannia. Ran a really good race. He's just one of those horses, whereas Pogo, Chindit and Jumby, we know all about them. He's one that could have a little bit of improvement. And Mostabshir, the half-brother to Mostadaf, he's another one where he's putting me off having a bet, because in the blinkers he could improve a lot, but is he 10s and 12s? He's not. He's about 6 to 1, 7 to 1. So it's a tricky one. No strong fancy. Very
tricky race to weigh up, the Hungerford Stakes. Pogo for KC from the panel. But a better betting race is one we're going to look at next, because it's the Great St Wilfrid at Ripon. Their showcase race of the season, handicap over 6 furlongs, big field to get stuck into. And that's exactly what we're going to do now. Now, there is some overnight rain forecast at Ripon. Who knows what, but they could be looking at 12 to 15 mils, something like that. And with that in mind, you're looking at a ground on the soft side.
Without doubt. Yeah, without doubt. It's an interesting race as ever. It's possibly lacking like a bit of a progressive star and maybe a little bit of strength in depth. I know you've got 3 3-year-olds in the past. That hasn't completely been a barrier to success in the past. We've seen 3-year-old winners of the St Wilfrid. Summergan tops the weights on official ratings. He's very, very good in these big field handicaps. He's run well in this particular race on a couple of occasions in the past as well. David Amara's in good form. He's the one to shoot at. He's market leader and he looks the obvious favourite to me. He's won 16 races, this horse. The running comments, though, of his last 5 victories have all started in rear, towards rear, held up. So I think he's a horse that needs everything to fall right, as we know. He's 9 now. He's exposed, isn't he? But quality.
Yeah, he's got a bit of a class edge about him, hasn't he? It's rare you see a handicap of this nature with something £4 clear at the top of the time form ratings. He didn't go in the stalls in the Stewards Cup, but I know Danny Tuddock was interviewed yesterday and he said that's not like him. They don't know what went on there, basically. But he's rock solid, isn't he? That Skybet Dash form. The Scouts has come out and won twice. The winner won the Stewards Cup.
Yeah. It was an eye-catching run, wasn't it? It was one that suggested he was coming back to the boil, and he does do that this time of year.
That's exactly,
fresh, these big, valuable sprint
handicaps. He's running here off 97. He won at the EBA meeting last year off 97, and he won the Air Gold Cup off 102, I think it was.
Peak career rating of 113. So
lobbed in.
He's very well handicapped.
Yeah, obviously very well treated. But there's some young, improving sprinters in against him, and the way this race is run, they normally split into groups. Probably a pocket on the far side, and perhaps a bigger group towards the stand side. So let's have a look at the pace map, and we might be able to decipher who goes where. And will it suit Summergan, Matt? Because we know that it's tough to come from the rear at Ripon, and he is a hold-up horse, and he's the key horse in this race.
Yeah, he is. So when you're looking at on the telly, he's drawn 7, which is kind of more towards that far side. He does have pace around him, though, doesn't he? In the 3-year-old Sophia Starlight in 6, Dream for Gold is stall 3 there. So technically there's kind of pace right across the track. You've got a little bit up the middle there. Right at the bottom on the screen, you've got one from the bottom is Hyper Focus, a confirmed pace horse.
He'll love the ground.
He'll love the ground. He loves Ripon. He's on a fair mark. I think you're fairly keen on Hyper Focus from a pace perspective as well.
When you look at Great St Wilfrid's, they're often won by a horse that bags the stands rail and makes all. And Hyper Focus is that horse this year. He's drawn in 19. He hasn't got a lot of obvious pace around him, so you think he will be able to bag the rail. And with the rain during the night, that'll suit him. He's a big prize, so I do think he's an each-way player. But we're going to look at some video clues now, and we're going to look at one from each side, and we'll get one of you to talk about the far side and one the stand side. So first of all, we've got Lakota Blue, who goes from stall 1 on the far side, Kieran at Ripon.
Yeah.
And here he is running well at Goodwood last time.
Yeah, behind James Jungle. This was on ground similar to what he could end up like yesterday. And I thought he was a little bit unlucky. He didn't quite get a clear run when he needed it, but he stayed on really well late on, hasn't he? And this was a 3-year-old event. He's now back against the older horses. You'd think the step up back to 6 furlongs a suit on this evidence, and he's a course and distance winner as well for Nigel Tinkleyard, who've been amongst the winners recently. He's the one for me. If there is something lurking that's potentially a mid-90s horse, he could be it because he's still on the up. I do think his price is around about right, but he's drawn on the far rail, isn't he, in 1, and I do think Ripon, when it gets soft, I think either rail tends to be the place to be. You don't want to be marooned down the middle. He's got a lot going for him.
More rain the better, Tinkler said in midweek.
Yeah, well, he's won here, like I say, early in the season.
Are there any other horses on the far side, Kieran, we should be looking at? Because I know Monsieur Cody's drawn out there.
I don't really like that form at Goodwood last time. That was a strange race, wasn't it? 2 of them came this side. The ground was virtually unraceable. I'd be his Yama form's really strong. I'd be concerned about him confirming that form, even though the runner-up actually won last night as well. Bay Breeze, maybe another course and distance specialist, 14-1. He might have an each-way chance, but of those on the far side, I'd stick with Summergand. He was first home of the 4 that went that side last year. He's just got loads going for him, I think.
Okay, so we're going to look at the near side, Matt, and a horse called Ratia, who is drawn in 20. And this is a couple of starts ago at Haydock.
Yeah, he was back to form. He was back to close to his best, I'd say. He's not an easy horse to catch right. I think Julie Camacho's on record saying he's a bit of a quirky customer, like a lot of these sprint handicappers are. He's fairly versatile from a pace perspective. He's often ridden quite prominently though, so from stall 20 you'd imagine he might be among those keeping the likes of Hyper Focus company throughout those early stages of the race. He might be in the best position. It's hard to tell beforehand. Like I say, quite hard to predict. Connections, they've taken the hood off this time. He's been wearing a hood and cheek piece his last couple of starts, so they're just trying to sort of sweeten him up, keep him fresh. He's 6 now. He'd probably need a career best. He's rated 93, so he's not for me personally.
Are there any others that are drawn towards the stand side that we should talk about?
There are a few, yes. So I quite like one from each side. So I'm interested in Anthem National. He's drawn in stall 15, so relatively high. He's having his first run for Phil Kirby. He actually changed hands just last month for 200 grand, 210,000 guineas. And he's interesting. He's a son of Dark Angel. He was with Joseph O'Brien, started out with the Crisfords last year, and his form's quite eye-catching. He was third to El Caballo on the all-weather in the listed race last spring. And then when we saw him last, he's probably run a career best. He's finished just second to Comanche Falls, come out and won the Hackwood.
He did, yeah.
He won that. There's another winner in behind, 4th or 5th, who has won a minor race since as well. So he's run really well. Now, Connections could probably have done without the subsequent rise in the ratings, because he was rated 96 in Ireland, comes over here and he's got to run off 105 off top weight. But when you're looking to take on Summergand, I do feel as though I'm struggling to back these 3-year-olds, because I think, like I say, that class gap is so hard. It's so hard to bridge that gap, whereas fighting fire with fire in a sense, I quite fancy a classy horse to maybe put it up to him. And if there is one that could be, a group horse in the handicap, Anthem National might be it. I don't know if he's going to handle the ground. I don't know if he's drawing the right place, and we've got to take his fitness on trust a little bit. But it was only last month he finished a career best second, so I might be willing to roll the dice. He's 20 to 1, 16 to 1. I'd be happy around that price.
Just quickly on stable switches, we've got another one as well. 12th Night, who's had a really good season, has gone from Ruth Carr to the informed Paul Midgley. Make of that what you want, but this might have been the plan all along, who knows, but he's another one that's won over course and distance around 14 to 1. But for me, Scoop, I'd back Summergand all the way down to 4 to 1, 7 to 2. I just think he's that good against these, even though he's going to miss the break and be bigger in running after a furlong. I just think he'll outclass these.
Okay, Anthem National for Matt, Summergand for Kieran, and Hyper Focus each way for me in the Great St Wilfrid Ripon. Thank you for watching. Do join us next week for the Sky Bet York Ebor Festival, and best of luck with any weekend wagers you're having this Saturday.